The bright lights of the Good Morning America studio gleamed with their usual morning intensity, bouncing off the polished floors and reflecting in the eyes of the audience who had gathered in anticipation. The buzz in the room was electric, a mix of chatter and the occasional burst of laughter as coffee cups clinked and camera crews adjusted equipment. Faith Hill had always been a figure of poise and charm, the kind of celebrity whose mere presence seemed to elevate the room, and the morning promised exactly that, a casual, upbeat conversation about her new album and upcoming tour. From the moment she stepped onto the set, dressed in a tailored yet effortlessly stylish outfit, the audience erupted in applause. She smiled warmly, nodding to the crowd and giving Michael Strahan a friendly handshake. On the surface, everything seemed as though it would follow the usual, well-oiled morning show formula: a few light jokes, a discussion about music, and a touch of personal anecdotes that humanized the star without prying too far. But almost immediately, it became clear that this interview would not follow the usual script. Michael Strahan, who was usually smooth, charismatic, and careful with his wording, began steering the conversation into a territory Faith clearly had not anticipated. Instead of opening with her music, he brought up old rumors and personal matters. His tone, professional but pointed, carried an unexpected sharpness. "Faith," he began, leaning slightly forward with that trademark Strahan intensity, "you've had such an incredible career. But I have to ask, there have been whispers about tension with some of your collaborators over the years. What's the truth behind that?" Faith tilted her head slightly, her serene smile tightening just a fraction. She took a slow breath, carefully weighing her words. "Michael, I came here to talk about my music and the projects I'm working on. That's what matters to me today." Her voice was calm, almost measured, but there was an edge to it, one that suggested she was already bracing for conflict. Michael, sensing the tension but seemingly undeterred, pressed further. Of course. But don't you think your personal life, and the challenges you've faced, have influenced your music more than you're willing to admit?" The audience shifted in their seats, sensing the shift in energy. What began as a morning filled with warmth and laughter was suddenly turning tense. Faith's eyes flicked briefly toward the camera, acknowledging the millions watching at home. There was a subtle steel in her gaze, a quiet but unmistakable warning: this conversation was approaching a line she would not cross. "I appreciate that perspective," she said carefully, "but my music is about my artistry and my message, not the gossip or speculation surrounding my life. I'm here to celebrate the work I've poured myself into, and that's what I want to focus on." Michael, still leaning forward, nodded thoughtfully, though there was a spark in his eyes that suggested he wasn't ready to back down. "Absolutely, but fans are curious. They want to know the woman behind the songs. Surely, there are moments that shaped you personally, moments that influenced the albums they love." Faith's jaw tightened imperceptibly, her hands rested on her lap, fingers tightening around her notes as she maintained her composure. "Fans can find that in my music," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "Every note, every lyric, every performance is a reflection of my life experiences. That's where the truth is, not in rumor mills or questions that drift into my personal boundaries." The live audience could feel the tension mounting, a quiet hum of anticipation running through the room. Cameras subtly shifted to capture every micro-expression: Faith's controlled composure, Michael's slightly furrowed brow, the unspoken battle playing out in polite yet charged dialogue. It was a classic standoff, a collision of professionalism and personal boundaries, and the viewers at home could almost feel the energy crackling through the screen. Michael tried one more time, softer this time, attempting to reclaim the warmth that had defined his morning show persona. "I understand, Faith, truly. But as someone who's followed your career for decades, I can't help but be curious about the stories behind the music. The struggles, the triumphs, those things matter to your fans." Faith inhaled deeply, holding the moment longer than necessary. There was a pause, pregnant with tension, as the audience leaned forward in collective anticipation. "Michael, I respect that curiosity," she said, her voice now firm and unwavering. "But I am here to share my work, not my personal life. And if that isn't clear, I'll have to end this conversation. I came here for my music, and that's where my focus remains." Even the crew behind the cameras felt the shift. Producers whispered into headsets, adjusting cues, while camera operators subtly readjusted angles to capture every nuance. The mood had shifted from casual enthusiasm to edge-of-your-seat anticipation. Viewers at home would later recall this moment as the precise instant where the interview pivoted from standard morning show fare to a charged confrontation that no one expected, a moment where Faith Hill's composure met an unrelenting line of questioning head-on. The tension in the Good Morning America studio had reached a boiling point. Faith Hill, usually the embodiment of poise and grace, now radiated controlled fury. The questions had crossed a line, prying into areas of her personal life she had long kept private. The audience, sensing the shift, sat frozen in their seats, unsure whether to applaud, gasp, or simply remain silent as the once bright morning atmosphere grew thick with discomfort. Michael Strahan, despite his years of experience, had misjudged the situation. He leaned forward, attempting to recover his composure and maintain the flow of the interview. "Faith, I understand your perspective, but I think we're done here," Faith interrupted sharply, her voice cutting through the hum of cameras and murmurs in the audience. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. She stood, her movements deliberate and authoritative, as the studio audience collectively gasped. The sound of her heels clicking against the polished floor echoed in the suddenly silent room. Every eye followed her as she gathered her notes, her posture straight, her expression unwavering. Michael opened his mouth to respond, but the words faltered. For the first time that morning, he appeared uncertain, caught off guard by the decisive action of the superstar in front of him. The producers behind the scenes were on high alert, whispering frantically into their headsets, trying to regain control of the live broadcast, but Faith was resolute. She had made her point. The live cameras captured every second as she moved toward the exit. She paused briefly, turning her gaze toward the camera and, through the lens that millions would see at home, delivered a statement that was calm, measured, but full of authority. "I will not sit here while my personal life is used as entertainment. That's not why I'm here, and it never will be." Then, without another word, she exited, leaving behind a room frozen in stunned silence. The audience, initially unsure how to react, began murmuring among themselves, a low wave of shock passing through the rows. Camera operators adjusted angles to fill the now empty chair, while the crew scrambled to maintain continuity in the broadcast. Michael Strahan sat back in his chair, visibly rattled. His usual charm and composure were replaced with a momentary vulnerability, a recognition that he had misjudged both the guest and the situation. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly, as he tried to regain some semblance of control over the interview. The producers quickly moved in, whispering urgent instructions and adjusting camera feeds. One producer murmured, "Go to a commercial, now." The control room erupted into coordinated chaos, the professional veneer of live television fraying as the incident unfolded in real time. Social media, of course, exploded instantly. Clips of the confrontation began circulating within minutes, with fans and critics alike debating the interaction, dissecting every word, gesture, and expression. The viral potential was immediate and undeniable. As the broadcast resumed, the conversation shifted awkwardly. Michael, trying to salvage the moment, addressed the audience with an uneasy smile. "Well, folks, sometimes even live television has surprises. Faith Hill has always been a strong voice in music, and I respect her perspective." Behind the forced calm, however, the weight of the earlier confrontation lingered. The studio felt charged with a residual energy that would not dissipate easily. Later, reports from insiders painted a fuller picture. Faith's decision to leave the set was deliberate, a statement about boundaries and respect. "She has always been professional, but she won't compromise her dignity for ratings," one source explained. Fans across the nation applauded her for standing firm, sending waves of support across social media platforms. Trending hashtags, GIFs, and reaction videos multiplied by the minute, cementing the confrontation as a defining cultural moment of the day. Even the network issued a statement later that afternoon, acknowledging the incident and promising a review of interview protocols to ensure guests felt comfortable and respected. Meanwhile, Michael Strahan's role was analyzed from every angle, with some defending his line of questioning as journalistic curiosity and others criticizing it as overreach. The episode became more than just a morning show mishap, it became a reminder of the delicate balance between celebrity access and personal boundaries. Faith Hill had transformed what could have been a routine interview into a defining moment, demonstrating that professionalism does not require submission and that courage sometimes manifests in simply walking away. By the end of the day, the story dominated headlines, social media feeds, and late-night discussions. For viewers, it was a lesson in poise under pressure. For the entertainment industry, It was a stark reminder that even in the brightest spotlight, a person's integrity cannot be taken for granted. And for Faith Hill, it was a reaffirmation of her voice, her authority, and her unshakable commitment to herself and her craft.